Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 15 of the Naff Report. This week, we are changing things up just a little bit. For the first 14 episodes, we've had a lot of folks in town who are leaders in town, whether it's from the town hall or different members from different boards and committees in town, a lot of political leaders and government leaders and policymakers. But what I want to do more of with the show is to have different types of leaders from the community. We've had some student athletes on, and that's always fun. But tonight I'm really excited to be joined by a leader in our community and outside the greater Millbury community, and that is the one and only Renee King. Renee is the founder of the Queen's Cup, who just recently, just in July, moved her new shop to the Canal District. So I'm really excited to talk to Renee tonight, sort of pick her brain about her journey in running the Queen's Cup and entrepreneurship and all those things related. So Renee, welcome to the Naff Report.
Thank you
for being with us.
I'm so happy to be here.
Now, talk to me about when you first baked that first batch of cupcakes, that first order. Did you ever imagine having a premier location in Worcester's Canal District?
No, not at all.
So how'd that happen?
Well, I first started with apple pies from scratch.
Okay.
And that just was like so crazy, like just so time consuming. And then I was like obsessed with the Food Network. That's when all the shows were coming out and it was becoming really popular. So I started making cupcakes, and like any hobby I have, I just become like obsessed with it until I'm, done with it.
Yep.
I'm not done yet with this hobby, but
good.
So I just remember like being home on a Friday and making these cupcakes, and I think I made like chocolate box mix. I put raspberry inside, and I made like a weird green frosting with almonds on top. So it doesn't really make any sense, but I brought them to my friend's house and they liked them, probably because they had to. And then I just like became intrigued by all different flavors, what I could put together. And this is when Instagram had just come out and was popular, so I started putting pictures online. I'd get like, 4 likes, my mom, cousin, a friend. And, and then I would put them on Facebook, and then all of a sudden it was just like,
wow, these are really good.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean.
Feedback was positive from
yeah, exactly, and people would order from me, and of course, I was a broke college student, so why not?
Right.
I don't think I made any money, but, it was so fun, and by the end of my senior year, I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't want to go back to school. I graduated with a psychology degree, so I didn't know what I wanted to do. So my parents just said, why don't you open a bakery? So then I opened a bakery with no business sense, no background in it at all, taught myself everything. And now, 5 years later, I have this beautiful historic building in Worcester, and I never ever thought we would be here.
The building is beautiful. I was there last Thursday.
Yep.
And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But the building is beautiful. I love old brick buildings.
Yeah.
And the shop is beautiful. And when you walk in, you can tell it has your touch. And I just love how you put your touch on an old building. And the sort of, and I'm not a designer by any means, but I appreciate good design. To see sort of a modern flair on the old building was really neat.
I mean, it was definitely a beautiful building when I first saw it, but it was in really, really rough condition. I
saw a lot of the before pictures.
And
a lot of work went into it.
It took, 6 months to really, bring it back to life. But it was such an amazing journey watching it all happen. It was kind of just like a really slow process, and then all of a sudden it was boom. We're about to open tomorrow, and just seeing it all come together and seeing how my parents, especially my dad, because he grew up in Worcester, my papa had a key to the city like that. This was like so important, for them too. And it was just really cool to see, when we first got it, it was rubble and cracked windows everywhere, and it was in really, really rough condition. But
you sort of went through that once on a smaller scale when you opened the Millbury store.
Yeah, much smaller.
Right. Now, when you opened the Millbury Bakery, walk me through what your initial thoughts were. What were your ambitions then?
I had no clue. I all I told myself in the beginning was, if this fails, I have my degree.
Yep.
And I didn't really go that much into debt. You know, it's manageable. And I just said, if this doesn't work out, I have an education, and that's fine, and I'm happy that I have that, and I can figure it out. And then, you know, the first year rolls around, and I was just happy to be open, you know, and then the second year rolled around, I was like, wow, okay, like I'm still so happy to be open. And it wasn't really until year 3 where I said, okay, maybe this can really be something.
Right.
And I've never celebrated until 5 years, because it takes so much, and one thing can happen, you can go out of business. And it, you know, in the beginning, I just don't think I had goals. I just wanted to stay open.
Survive.
Yeah, and that was realistic for me at the time. You know,
Right.
I didn't want to like go out and be like, oh, I want to make $500,000 my first year, like all this crazy stuff that would never happen, because sometimes if you shoot for the moon, you shoot a little too far,
Sure,
and you know, so.
But to your point, it is tough to start a business, and that's why a lot of people don't end up taking that leap of faith, especially in that industry, restaurants and shops like yours, and something like 9 out of 10 fail in 2 years.
Like 90% in the first year, 50% by year 3.
Yeah,
and they say, if you know, by year 4, year 5, you should be golden if you can stay open. So that's why I honestly didn't celebrate until year 5.
Right. But you've beaten the odds. And you survived, and now from just being a customer since those early days, it's clear that you're thriving. And that's just really exciting to see. And it's not just cupcakes. You sort of were quick to understand that you had this ability to grow the business. So it's not just cupcakes, it's other things in the store, but also you go out to events now.
Yeah.
Speak a little bit about sort of from, you know, the first year or so expanding into events, and then talk about now you're an employer. Right?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I know, that's crazy.
All these things happen so quickly.
Yeah. You know, in the first year or so, I tried to get my name out there as much as possible, and you know, there was a lot of businesses that I respected, and I would always drop them off cupcakes, and you know, just try and get my name out there any way I could.
Yep.
But I was a little bit more hesitant then than I am now. But I used to say, like, we're only doing cupcakes. We're never doing anything else. We're never, you know, going to get into cakes and everything. And then you realize pretty early on that even though a ton of people love cupcakes, so many people still love cakes. And they also like other desserts and everything. And I realized early on I would not be able to survive if we only offered cupcakes.
Right.
And then we got into
be too romantic about what you wanted to do.
I mean, it's just you have to offer other things.
Right.
And I have such a talented staff now. It's really crazy to see every day the things that they come up with. But we cater a lot of weddings. We do about 30 weddings a year.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. That's enough for me.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I get asked all the time to advertise for weddings and stuff, but you know, it's like every Saturday.
That's more than 2 a month.
Yeah, it's like one, you know, this past month we had 5 on one weekend and 3 on another, and I've learned to kind of step back and not do that much, you know, because it's stressful. It's someone's big day. You don't want to be like so like, you know, just strung to the point where you don't do a good job for their wedding. And it's so much busier where we are now that, you know, we're finishing cupcakes like an hour before they're supposed to leave. And I love that because we love to be fresh. We bake everything within 24 hours, but that's also really stressful.
Sure.
But I love doing the catering. Like this morning we dropped off 250 brownies that had pumpkins on them for David Clark Company. But for me, you know, like UMass and a lot of these companies, they use us all the time for events. And for me, I'm just like still amazed by that because I'm just like this, you know, I still think of us as this like small time business, and all of a sudden like these companies are using us for their events. And I just think that's like the most amazing thing. I take such pride in that. And
to me, it's not surprising. The first batch of cupcakes I had, I thought they were incredible. Everyone I talked to thought they were incredible. So that word of mouth has really been powerful for you.
Yeah, word of mouth is crazy. And I think, you know, most places will tell you that they try and get better every day, but I honestly feel that we really try to get better every day. And my staff, they treat it like it's their bakery, and I think that's the difference because they really want everyone to be so happy. So it's so fun to see how we've grown.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that because you mentioned your great staff, and they are really good people to be around. When you walk in the store, even when you're not directly behind the register, it still feels like this great environment where everyone has bought in.
Yeah, good.
Why? How do you make that happen? How do you get a lot of people to be on the same mission that you are?
Well, anytime I interview someone, like there's always a few things I say. Like what I go off of is if we can sit in a room and speak, because we're together for a lot of hours. You know, even if you work part-time, we're still together a lot. I'm an owner that's always there for the most part. So I always go off their vibe, you know, how they treat me should be how they treat a customer. And then I always say, you know, if you work here, like the customer comes first. Like someone can come in and be so rude to you and you don't know what happened to them before they walk through the door. And you just have to like deal with it, even though it's really hard sometimes.
You gotta eat crow sometimes.
But, you know, I always say like I sign their paycheck, but the people who pay them are the customers. Right. So I think they kind of know that importance, and I always say, like, if we don't have people walking through the door, then you don't get paid and you don't have a job, and that's just kind of, you know, but the staff that I have in the kitchen especially, they're pretty much all new from the past location.
Yeah, so how many employees did you have at the old store, and then how many do you have at the new store?
I had maybe like 9 or 10. Now we have 23.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's kind of crazy. You know, 3 of them are away at school, so basically we have 20.
Yep.
And, you know, that's a lot of pressure.
Of course.
And I wake up I wake up every day and I say, okay, like, let's go. Because it's not just like kids, you know, part-time kids anymore. It's moms of multiple children. It's my own parents. It's like me who, you know, eventually wants to buy a house and like have a life and things. So yeah, it's a lot.
The pressure is on.
Yeah, the pressure is always on.
Right.
But, you know, I love it, and I enjoy being at work and who I work with, and the kitchen staff especially, it's just to see my dad be so happy to be around them, and they really learn from him, and it's just a really great environment. So.
And like I mentioned, the environment when you walk in, you can just feel it. It is positive energy in the place. That happened at the old store. I think it's even this new store has sort of exemplified that. It's sort of put an exclamation on that environment. It's just a wonderful place to be when you walk in. And it's always been that. So it's sort of neat to see that grow with the business as well.
I try to treat everyone like they're my family.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a family business, and you know, in the past sometimes that's kind of not been the greatest for me. I've definitely been taken advantage of and being like a young boss. Like at one point I was 23, 24, 25. I'm only 28 now, but there's definitely a difference now in who I am because I feel that they respect me. But sometimes treating people like family, you don't always get that.
True.
But I feel like now it's just different. You know, I think people want to be a part of it. And it's a fun story that we have, but all my staff has their own story, and I just try and treat them like, you know, they're like my little sisters or older sisters or whatever it is. So
now getting back to the Millbury store, when obviously it was much smaller than where you are now.
Oh yeah.
And clearly you had an idea that we can be bigger than this. So talk to me about how you went from thinking about we probably need a bigger store, and then how did you end up where you ended up? Okay,
so I had been looking for about 2 years.
Okay.
But you know, I think in the beginning of that 2 years, I didn't know if it really could happen. You know, it's just I'm kind of just one of those people that you think it can happen, but you're not sure. And it's like so funny because I was 22, 23, and took this huge leap of faith, and now I'm like, oh, I don't know, can we do it? You know. But anyways, I looked around, I looked in Grafton, I looked in Millbury, and I just didn't think it would work. Like I had people from the Board of Health come with me and just tell me like, what would I have to do to be here? And it just seemed like so much work, and I just didn't know if I was cut out for it. And then it just got to be like, way too much. You know, we had 2 work tables. We're working in 750 square feet, but really our workspace was about 200.
Right.
And it just was busier and busier. And, you know, we grew a lot in the 3rd year. And I just said, okay, like I have to like figure something out. I can't continue to work this way. And I went to Birch Street Bread Company, which I love, for one of their pizza nights with a great friend of mine, Amy, who owns Crompton Collective. And we were with my landlord now, Ed Murphy, but he wasn't my landlord then. And we were just talking, and I just said, like, I'm really frustrated because I love Millbrae, I love this tiny little shop, but I just don't think we can continue like this.
Yeah.
And I said, but I don't think there's any room for me in Worcester. And they're like, what? Why wouldn't there be any room for you? And I just said, I don't know. You know, I just don't know if this would be the right spot. And Ed said, what would it take for you to get here? And I said, well, you could give me some money. And he said, you know, I have a lot of buildings. Why don't you come with me? I have one in mind. So I went with him, and the building that we're in now, and I loved it.
Yep.
But I get really excited easily. So
Sure.
of course I was going to love it. It was like this beautiful building. And then I brought my dad with me the second time, and he loved it. And he's like a really big skeptic. You know, normally he's right, but we call him like Mr. Negative.
Sure. You need those counteracting
yeah,
forces.
right. Devil's
sure.
advocate, definitely. And he loved it. And then from there, I was like, wow, you know, if he loves it, then I feel like this could definitely be it. But there was so much work that had to be done. I mean, you know, from the ground up, we had to redo everything. And I was like, I don't have the money for this. Where am I going to get the money for this? And so anyways, I had worked with Clark University before in the Small Business Development Center, and I met with them, and we put together a whole new business plan. I mean, I had to take, like, thankfully I had switched to a POS system because it gives you all the stats. Like, I could tell you last year on this day what we made at this time.
Yeah, it's helpful.
And then, like, Instagram and Facebook, they now give you statistics too.
Yep.
So I can tell you, like, our biggest follower are women between the age of 18 and 25, and this is, you know, and all that. So that really helped with the business plan. And then since I had numbers and I have great accountants, they were able to forecast. So they put together this whole thing for me. And I applied at 3 different banks, got denied by 2. Right off the bat, I remember Thanksgiving Eve, one of the banks called me and said, like, I'm sorry, and I just said, are you kidding me, on Thanksgiving Eve? But, you know, everything happens for a reason. It was totally fine. Those were actually my backup banks, which is funny to think I got denied. And then I started working with Cornerstone Bank, and they were, like, unbelievable. You know, they called me in. They wanted to know my whole story. They wanted to meet me. They wanted to meet my parents. And they really took a chance on me because I never had great cash flow, because everything I made I put back into the business. And I wasn't really that great at saving money because it's hard. You have so much, you know, so much to pay for and everything.
You have to figure out a way to sort of pay yourself first sometimes, right?
Yeah, but I've always paid myself last, even now to this day.
It's difficult.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, so they really took a chance on me, but I applied for the loan starting last October, and I didn't get approved until the end of January. And that was like, I mean, I feel like I need to throw a party for my family because I was just so miserable. You know, you just feel like every decision you make can really affect any financial decision can affect. You know, they'd call me and they'd be like, what was this charge on your Target card 3 years ago for like $7? And I'd, what? You know, and they really, it was really stressful.
Yeah.
I mean,
working with lenders sometimes can feel like giving up your firstborn. Like you have to give them
I'm
everything
like,
under
they're
the
going to
sun.
ask me for my jean size and like all this. But I was willing to do, you know, anything.
Right.
And I finally got approved, and then, you know, we started the whole process last February. I mean, it cost $50,000 more than I allotted for. And money apparently grew on trees. I don't know how we ended up doing it, but, you know, I owe my parents so much. And it was crazy, but now we're here.
Now we're here.
Yeah.
And I'm just so impressed with how you've been able to get here. I was a customer back in the day, and just to watch your progression has been really sort of inspiring. Not sort of, definitely inspiring. So just a couple questions with the time we have remaining. Talk to me about from your perspective, what misconception is there about being an entrepreneur, which you are? You may not have intended to be, but you are.
I think that a lot of times and even growing up, I used to say it all the time, like, oh, you own your own business, you're rich. And it's like the farthest thing from the
Right.
truth.
Yeah.
You know, like people say, oh, you charge $3.25 for a cupcake. Like, I don't see that $3.25 ever.
Right.
You know, like there's so many things that have to be paid and 20 people on payroll.
Right.
So I think that's a huge misconception that, like, I don't go home and shower in $100 bills.
Right.
I wish I could,
Sure.
but I don't.
Yeah.
And I've always put money back into the business. And I'm just learning now about taxes and like all these, you know, things. And it took me 5 years. So I think that's definitely the number one misconception.
And then is there a misconception or something that you think more folks should understand about what it means to be a woman entrepreneur?
I definitely think it's hard. It's hard, but I'm surrounded by a lot of like strong female entrepreneurs, which is awesome. But I definitely feel sometimes men or like even older women, I've dealt with like older women that own businesses, they look at me like I'm just a young girl who has no clue. And maybe in the beginning I didn't.
Right.
But 5 years in, I know where the money goes. I know what I'm spending. I know what other people charge me. And, you know, I had a mechanic come in, fix my display case, and the way that he talked to me on the phone, I was just like, I would not accept it. You know, I just couldn't believe that he would speak to me the way that he spoke to me. And he got talked to, you know, in a polite way.
Great.
It's just, you know,
Like,
I don't
buddy.
tolerate that.
That's great.
I've learned a lot, and I started this from the ground up, and I want to be respected just like I give other people respect. So, but you know what, honestly, I can't really complain that much for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, you have to take your lumps in a way.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, unfortunately, different people have to overcome different obstacles. Can't always control that.
But even sometimes, maybe, I think sometimes people don't even realize that they treat you that way until you just say, like, you kind of made me feel this way.
Gotcha.
And
I hear you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy.
Good.
You know, there's definitely things that go wrong, and we're not perfect, and you know, but I'm happy.
Now, it's been 5 years. It might seem like longer.
Yeah.
But just from our conversation we're having this evening, it's clear you've learned a lot from that process. What are some of the things you know now that you could tell your 22, 23-year-old self?
I would definitely tell myself not to stress so much, because anything that's important gets done, you know, and I would definitely tell myself that it's not, you know, some things go wrong, but it's how you bounce back and react to them, that's when some of your best work gets done. You know, I've had things that I've made or things that my staff has made that I don't like and won't sell, and the second time around, it's like the best thing that they've done or that I've done.
So is there still a lot of trial and error with what you all are making?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I think they know what I want, and if I see them start doing something I don't like, or even myself, then I stop it in the beginning. I normally don't let it go the whole thing before I say. Or, you know, actually one of my employees, she said the best thing about me, which is so weird. I hate talking about myself like that, but she said, you know, like,
it's okay.
they'll like, you know, they'll get a tray of cupcakes and they'll get everything together, and I just say, like, what's your vision for that? And she's like, I love when you ask us what our vision is, because we can tell you what we're thinking, and you normally agree and say, yeah, or you say, let's add this to it. And I just thought that was, like, pretty cool. But
now, when you first started out, you were
everything.
You were the janitor, you were the baker, you were the accountant, you were the head salesperson, and you knew every single detail. And now and you know, I don't know all the details, but you've sort of allowed others to be involved in your process, and especially on the cupcake. Was that difficult to sort of relinquish some of your, not so much control, but overseeing that process?
It was definitely hard to trust people in the beginning. I'm still all those things. I mean, my dishwasher called out today. You know, the woman who owns Regatta is one of the smartest people I've ever met, and she told me a few years ago, she said, you have to work with your hands, and you should never ask your staff to do something that you wouldn't do. And I've always taken that to heart.
Yep.
So I still do all those things, but I've learned now that you can't do it all by yourself. So it was hard in the beginning to like let go of the cupcakes, but now I just love seeing what my staff does.
Yeah.
And it's cool because I can walk in, like let's say I come in when the display case is set up, and I can like tell you which employee decorated which cupcake, just because they all have their own style, but it's still all brought together in our own style.
And it still represents the brand.
Yeah,
of the
and
Queen's
it's
Cup.
super cool, you know, and like the other thing I say in interviews is that you'll never be able to stay here if you don't want to learn. Because I've had employees that think they know everything, and you don't. You can learn constantly. I learn every day from my employees. I have girls who went to culinary school who are so talented, and I learn from them, and we all learn from each other. And so, I don't know. It was harder, I think, years ago than it is now.
Yeah. The creative process. It's, you know, every new cupcake you make is sort of a blank canvas, right? And you guys have what? I mean, you've probably hundreds of different kinds of cupcakes over the years. Do you think that process is just a general curiosity of mine? Do you think that process of being creative is innate, or is that something you can learn over time?
I think you can get better over time, but I think it's something that you kind of have to be born with.
Yeah, there's genetics at play, you think?
It seems like it would be, you know, people say to me all the time, oh, it would be so fun to work here. And it is, because you can come in and I trust you to like come up with what you want to come up with, and you have to be able to think on your feet. But some people can't handle that. You know, some people, especially in the culinary world and the baking world, they want everything laid out for them, and they want every single step. And I can't, as a boss, I can't do that, because it's just like, I don't want to have to tell 10 people in the kitchen every single step. So I've had people quit after their first day because they need more direction, and that's not me. So everyone I hire now, they have to be able to just do it. You know, the first few days, I train them, but then it's like, okay, you got to take initiative, you got to. And if you're not doing it now, then you need to go home and research it. Yeah,
I definitely agree. I have an aunt of mine. She is in television editing. She's a producer. She just has an innate ability to be a great editor.
Yeah.
You know, I know all the tools. I've seen all her tools of editing. I could not piece what she pieces together.
Yeah, you know, it's like people who are, you know, great with music.
Right.
You could put me in front of a microphone. You could tell me everything to say, and it would not sound like it should sound. So.
Do you think entrepreneurs are born?
I don't know, because this was never my plan. Yeah. So I think you have to have a fire in your belly, and you know, when you're younger, it's just so hard. You always think you're going to do something, and some of us are lucky enough to stay on that path, but most of us change. And I think you just have to be determined and ready to sacrifice. I mean, that's what I've learned, is you got to sacrifice. You know, I was 22, 23, and my friends were, you know, we're just finishing up college, and they're still out till 3 a.m., and I'm waking up at 3 a.m. to go to work. Right. And it's always been a sacrifice for me. So. Well,
the sacrifice you've made as a parent, because you run a great business.
No, thank
you.
Renee,
thank you for coming on the program
thank
tonight.
You.
And for the folks at home, I would just like to close with a quick story. My grandmother passed away in the fall of 2012, and the day we all came back from the funeral, our family had fresh cupcakes waiting for us when we came back. So for that reason, the Naff family will always be customers of the Queen's Cup. Thank you, everybody. That includes our program this evening. Have a good night.